You know, if you're under the age of 35, I've got an enlightening activity I'd like to suggest. Go to YouTube and watch some of the debates between various US presidential candidates from before the year 2000 and you'll notice something strange. There are no personal attacks, no calls to jail the opposing candidate or label their followers as deplorable, no sneering or innuendo. The candidates are friendly with each other while arguing policy. They both recognize their shared nationality and humanity and are simply laying out competing visions for the future of the country. Contrast this to today's mudslinging contests where candidates are trying to destroy each other's reputations and many of their followers are vowing that they would never date or marry someone from the opposite side of the political spectrum, and you have to ask,
how did it come to this?
Where are the quaint days of Americans identifying as one united front? Just about the last time I remember that happening was after 9/11. Well, that was before the advent of social media and algorithms that have divided people around the world into their echo chamber groups by presenting ever more extreme versions of various issues and painting political opponents as Nazis, Marxists, and all kinds of other ists and phobes. And it is a profitable enterprise to stoke the fires of the culture wars on social media. I sometimes think that I could make a pretty good living participating in this soap opera for people with too much time on their hands instead of giving my opinion on the merits of new motorcycles coming to the market. Many of these channels have millions of subscribers and billions of views, which just goes to show that people love drama. Unfortunately for my bank account, I just can't bring myself to try to profit from dividing people and keeping my viewers in a constant state of outrage. I have to be able to sleep at night. But if you are a quote-unquote creator who makes bank off of outrage, you have no incentive to tone down the rhetoric because your views and pocketbook depend on people being at each other's throats. Which is where we, as the audience, have to recognize that the outrage merchants have a perverse incentive to keep us divided. And we have the choice of falling for it or not. Because these, creators show up like a pack of parasitic bugs every time any news creeps up and attempt to turn it into a full-blown controversy. But to their chagrin, the whole DEI Harley Davidson boycott is over, and I'll explain why in this video. And as always, if you find this content valuable, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with friends. For the details on the Harley DEI controversy, you can take a look at my previous video on the subject in the top right corner, which includes an explanation of why corporations do DEI training in the first place. On a personal note, I believe that we should respect and provide opportunities to all people regardless of their background, ethnicity, or sexuality. People should love who they want to love and live as they want to live, and other people, and especially governments, should not stick their noses into people's private business. I guess that's the libertarian in me coming out. Freedom, baby. And that's why I was for gay marriage in 2001, 12 years before Barack Obama and 14 before Hillary Clinton. That was a very unpopular position back then, but seems rather uncontroversial now. I see all the comments calling Harleys gay and quite frankly don't get the joke. Ha ha, Harleys are gay? I guess. If you have the money and motorcycle license, you can buy one and ride it whatever your sexuality. I know a motorcycle instructor who is gay, rides a Harley bagger, and is probably more skilled than most of the people who make those comments. And I see the other side of the coin, because if you've ever attended one of these DEI training sessions, you might have walked out shaking your head. They can be annoying, patronizing, and divisive, and attribute simplistic explanations to complex societal problems. In fact, there is research showing that workplaces that institute these programs are less cohesive and more demoralized than ones that don't. But let's be real, no corporation, and most have these trainings by the way, is sitting there saying that they want to support every fringe and extreme idea that was ever floated by the charities they support or the DEI trainers that run their workshops. The way it works is that some middle manager thinks to themselves, oh, we're doing this now. This is the fashion of the time? Okay, let me organize this training or fund this charity so I look like I'm up on the current issues and buzzwords and get a promotion. This is the reality of today's workplace, and corporations will operate this way until they get pushback. And this is why I find this subject interesting. In my previous video, I outlined several ways Harley Davidson could respond to this issue. One was to ignore it and hope it goes away. Another was to quietly make changes and act like the whole thing never happened. A third was to publicly do an about-face and change their policies. And finally, the nuclear option, to do an about-face and change their leadership. And it didn't take very long for the company to publicly address this issue. They went for option 3 and put out a statement on X outlining the following. Harley Davidson currently has no diversity function and has not had one since April. It also has no hiring quotas and no longer has supplier diversity spending goals. These are designed to spread the company's spending out across businesses operated by people from diverse backgrounds. Moving forward, employee resource groups will focus exclusively on professional development, networking, and mentoring. Additionally, Harley Davidson will no longer participate in Human Rights Campaign HRC scoring and will strike any socially motivated content from its employee training materials. And finally, sponsorship will focus exclusively on growing the sport of motorcycling and support for first responders, active military members, and veterans. Now, I've seen both sides of the political spectrum try to cancel companies for various political reasons. Most of the time it doesn't work, but occasionally it does hurt sales. And my main interest here was to see if these efforts would succeed in driving corporations, especially motorcycle manufacturers, to be more apolitical. Other than that, I have no dog in this fight. I'm just curious whether the company will respond to the public pressure. And in this case, it clearly has. Harley Davidson probably heard from many of its customers and dealers and decided to change its policies. Interestingly, before they did that, their main competitor, Indian Motorcycles, also preemptively removed DEI references from their website, so I suppose this is an example of businesses responding to their customers' concerns and a bit of a cultural shift going on. I think that future business sponsorships will generally skew toward uncontroversial causes in the wake of these events, and even BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, the man largely responsible for pushing these policies in the first place, seems to now be pivoting away from the ESG agenda. And I guess that's how a free society is supposed to work. The pendulum swings one way a bit too far, encounters pushback, and starts to swing back. This is how free societies navigate decision-making. But if your views depend on outrage and division, you are less incentivized to accept that the controversy is over. After all, if all Americans were unified and the country was cohesive, your views and ad revenue would dry up. Now, many motorcycle channels have talked about this in the context of the motorcycling world, but I have also watched a lot of these outrage peddlers get on the bandwagon. These are the channels that will talk about anything divisive they can find and don't know anything about Harley motorcycles or the business. One admits that he's scared of motorcycles, and another states that the problem with Harleys is that they are not as good as in the past. When in the past? In the 90s when they had half the power of today's bikes and didn't handle as well? And I noticed that while the motorcycling channels tend to downplay the significance of this controversy, the professional outrage peddlers continue to try to keep it rolling. It's not enough that the policies have changed, off with the CEOs and boards' heads, yada yada. And this is the point at which we have to become familiar with the phrase, "don't be a mark." This is a phrase that comes from professional wrestling. You know, the fake wrestling. A mark is a person who believes that what is happening inside the professional wrestling ring is real and gets emotionally invested in it. The truth is that I'm not even sure if these influencers believe what they're saying or if they're trying to keep the controversy going so they can farm it for views. Whenever I see any of these thumbs, I think to myself, here we go again. I just don't have the bandwidth for it, because the real truth is that this is all smoke and mirrors. All Western political parties take their orders from their rich donors and represent them. They follow policies that drive up debt by endless deficit spending and support corporate greed, policies which effectively erode the middle class and transfer wealth to the top. But these channels want us to keep fighting about who uses which bathroom. The great George Carlin had it right when he said,
"It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got." Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The big, the wealthy, the real owners, the big, wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets, and they own all the big all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else.
I write to forget my problems and de-stress. Research shows that people who experience less stress in their lives are long-term healthier and live up to 15 years longer than high-stress individuals. Just putting it out there. I'll ride with anybody on any brand bike, and if I criticize Harley Davidson, it will be for discontinuing their most affordable bikes, but that's a topic for another video. In the end, the US is a free country and people can choose to boycott whatever they want, but I sure wouldn't want to live in a place where I have to check if a business supports my politics before I buy something from it. That kind of behavior, and it is practiced by the most extreme elements on both sides of the political spectrum, is sure to eventually destroy a country. No matter what the outrage peddlers and algorithms push, it is up to individuals to recognize why they're doing it and not be a mark. As to what you should do, Peter Fonda has some ideas.
Just what is it that you want to do?
Well, we want to be free. We want to be free to do what we want to do. We want to be free to ride. And we want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded. And we want to have a good time. And that's what we're going to do.
Well, when, baby? Let's go.
We're going to have a good time. We're going to have a party.
This is my last word on this stuff, though I am curious about your thoughts, which you can share in the comments below. Please be civil though. Anyways, whatever you ride, stay safe out there, and may the spokes be with you.